our support team. Excellent. Welcome everybody for understanding the business agility by taking your valuable time this evening here in India time. I am Dr. Koti. Let me talk quickly about me. I am running this Empiric Management Solutions in the CEO capacity and CTO quite for some time on the agile transformations and trainings in this space. And I'm also partnering with Garanto, and I'm executive director there in Garanto, Singapore. We are working mostly on the transformation in the APAC region. Before this, I was working with C Prime for the PayPal account transformation, and then before United Technologies, and before that United Health Group, where I spent about 9 to 10 years in the healthcare domain. So, in specific to United Technologies, I was with Carrier Air Conditions Division, HVAC systems, and then C Prime. Anyway, this PayPal is all about banking domain. So I have experience of this manufacturing, healthcare, and banking, and some of the ERP domains before that. And I do have a lot of Scrum, Kanban, and DevOps implementation. Currently, I'm mostly working on the scaled agile transformation in most of the organization for the business agility, right? That's what the current buzz in the industry, and everybody aiming to get into business agility more than a single department or single product lines or only IT division of kind of agile. So this is the need of the hour, and most of the people are aiming to get there. And I think the aim for the next 30 to 40 minutes is to get there, understand from my experience, and then end, we will keep some time for any questions. So with that, this is what again you can see on screen about me. More than speaking anything else, I hope you understand my background and some credentials what I carry. And I'm working full time as a agile transformation in specific to scaled agile at this point in time. So here, why, what, how, a little bit on this business agility. Let's go and talk about it. So what I see most of the time when it comes to this agile is a mindset, and everybody knows that, right? Most of the people say that it is a mindset. A small video here, an attempt to make you understand what it means. It should be playing just in a few seconds, maybe some bandwidth issue.
I figure 75% to you, Panma, and 25% divided between the 5 of us. Gida, Crowbar, myself, Tom, and the baby. That makes 5% for each one of us.
Billy, you're cheating yourself. If there's 25% divided among the 5 of you, that's 14% apiece.
Oh, no, listen, Pa. I wouldn't cheat you. You know I wouldn't. Now, look here. I'll show you. Let me rub this out here. And now, 25 divided by 5 is 5. You see, 5 won't go into 2, will it? No. But 5 goes into 25 5 times, you see?
No, you're wrong, Billy. Now, I'm a pretty good mathematician. Now, 5 into 25... 5 won't go into 2, will it?
No.
But 5 goes into 5 once. Now, we didn't use the 2 before, so we bring it down here. Now, 5 into 20 goes 4 times. There you are. 5 into 25, 14.
No, look, Pa. Let me prove it to you now by multiplication. 5 times 5. 5 times 5 is 25.
Really, I'm surprised you're learning.
Huh?
I'm surprised that you're learning. Now I'll show you. 5 times 14 is 25. 5 times 4 is 20. 5 times 1 is 5. 25. That's it.
No. Look, Ma. See, look, you're wrong there because I'll prove it to you. We'll put down 5 14s here. 14. There. Now I'll prove to you by addition that 5 14s is not 25. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20.
21, 22, 23, 24, 25. There you are. Better brush up, Billy. I don't want to see you boys cheated.
Yes, that is the story. You all understand what it means from that video. Unfortunately, this is the state of affairs in most of the organization. Nobody cares about the realities. Nobody understand what it means to get there, and not ready to have that open mind to think about it, right? So as you have seen in this video clearly, it's talking about an attempt this guy is making on what it makes sense to get there. But unfortunately, people are not ready to understand. Even if they are understanding, they don't care about what this person is talking about. I mean, this is a kind of rigid mindset, what we have seen in the people historically. And even today, in spite of so much of great knowledge base and, a lot of tools and techniques in this digital disruption, it's a pain. Nobody want to change. That is the biggest problem what we have seen. Now, if you want to also understand this transformation in general, it's very, very important to understand some high-level kind of notions here. A translation and a kind of transition and transformation. These are three different things, and unfortunately, people mix them up. If you are trying to do some kind of translation from a role mapping, some kind of doing differently things, and making something different from one type of work to second type of work, it does not make you a big time change in the interest of the overall organizational needs. Sometimes you do certain things for a time and then you forget everything. The transition part is done. You don't care about the rest again because you are not interested in the overall organization purpose for a period of time or in the long run. So transformation is actual stuff where you have to do these changes in a way which can stay for long culturally. So the goal is transformation, not a translation or transition or a transaction, at times I say. So if you understand these basic tenets around what it means, I think then the behavior should be very different than what people are doing today. Now, as you see here again, the transformation requires a lot of due diligence and deliberate efforts to get there in terms of tools and technology. How do you solve the problems of the customers so that they can stay relevant and then they can stay ahead of the competition forever? It's not like a single transaction kind of thing. And transformation never ends, by the way, because what you do today may not work for tomorrow. You continue to transform, and the transformation journey evolves over a period of time as it demands as per the current trends and dynamics as you evolve. Now, another thing what I have seen from my experience is not many people understand what is an adoption means and what is a maturity means, unfortunately. So if somebody says, okay, we trained 100 people, 1,000 people, or my organization is trained, who cares about it? How it matters? Training is not everything, right? Or some kind of paper transformation does not make sense. It is not about how many people trained, how many people started the journey, what is done. At the end of the day, how matured you are in terms of the practices, and how are you able to improve this business value to the customers? How are you maximizing the value? How are you improving the satisfaction in terms of the quality and the employee engagement and also the customers from the NPS point of view? If you don't really get there by having more maturity, I think it does not make sense. So it's very, very important to understand the maturity more than adoption, right? Then if you look at most of the surveys today, it looks like the kind of spending on the digital transformation is going to be 6.8 trillion by 2023. Now we can understand what level of things happening in the digital disruption phase. And also most of these 70% of the transformation are falling short of their objectives. What does that means? Nobody cares about the future. Well, there is a lot of things lined up there. These are from IDC and the BCC kind of, the surveys, what they're talking about globally. So this is going to be a kind of a big eye opener for many people. If they don't really think about the way they need to transform, they will be extinct in the market for sure, because we have seen many organizations who are number one at one point in time, they are not existing even today. Why? This is the problem. They don't understand that sense of urgency and the need of the change. If you look at the cloud space, again, these statistics are coming from Deloitte and Gartner's. It's very evident that the spend we are going to do is going to be 23.1% to 2021, which is going to making almost 270 it was, and now it is 332. Means you can understand the things what's happening in this space. And also the post-pandemic, if you look at it, the percentage of the hike in terms of getting into the cloud space, you can understand. That's going to be the way forward. Without getting there, probably will not be able to sustain as well. And big data, this is from the Snowflake. If you look at the CNN business one, what they're talking about is the 5-year sales growth is of 819%. You can understand the game where it is going. Where was 592 million and where is 5.44 billion? You cannot even imagine what's going to happen in the big data space. A lot of people are spending a lot of money in business analytics and all the data points around that, so that we can optimize the way we work on many aspects proactively. Artificial intelligence is the next biggest thing happening on the planet today. And it's going to be a different ball game altogether, especially in banking sector and healthcare industries as well. On the investment side of the world, the forecasting, you know, the Bitcoin's game as well, right? Everything is revolving around the blockchain. And this artificial intelligence is going to help to bring this analytics from the cloud space as well all together. They are able to solve most of the futuristic problems which otherwise cannot be even imagined, right? So how do you really think about this kind of technologies in future facing in this digital disruptive world? It's very evident that big data, AI, clouds are going to change the game. And you need to be really get ready yourself to get there in terms of preparedness to sustain in the difficult times. This is the future, and we cannot ignore the fact of technologies along with the transformations. And this is another recent articles it is talking about. Bob Darren from that CVS Health talking about, they are going to be the organization who is going to really change the game the way they are working using the artificial intelligence, analytics, and data science and machine learning. Because some of the chronic diseases, you can find the patterns from the AI and analytics part of it to solve some of the patient problems. And they can predict and forecast based on what you eat, the way you live, what kind of diseases you can encounter in the future. And they also look at the sample of the people where that is being cured. They can recommend certain proactive, preventive medicines as well. So this is playing a vital role in the healthcare as well. And so it's very important for all of us to understand the importance regardless of what domain we are into. So why we are talking about all these things, you need to understand certain basic essence of the transformation and agility, and also the technology, how it is involved into the way of different domains and context. This is the why piece. I want to talk about why it makes sense and what it is for us we are going to understand. In the what piece here, what we are talking about is it is about the business value increment, not just development cycles. We are all working on incremental and iterative in the agile world. Just doing a bit of increment potentially realizable does not make sense. There are multiple teams working, multiple functions involved. There is end-to-end value streams you need to understand. Those parameters can help you to make sure that you are going to get a lot of meaning and valuable things to the customer at the end of the day. It is the business value increments more than a development increment alone, which does not make sense. And also, if you understand further here, the business agility point of view, we need to bring all the people, including all the functions, enablers, in a way to come together, work together to reduce the time to market in the shortest possible lead time. We need to maximize the value. If it is not going to help, there is no question of business agility. So one IT department or one portfolio being agile does not make any difference. And it does not bring the entire agility at the organization level. Business agility is all about how do you bring more of the overall perspective in the enterprise to maximize the value. So if you look at this part, you need a real business agility from a organization standpoint of view, where you can actually emerge this business opportunity over a period of time from a minimum viable product standpoint of view. So whenever you see that there is a possibility to get some business sense, you need to get to know about the possibilities to get there. And then you have to fund that minimum viable product to test the hypothesis. And then you need to organize around value. What do you see the value to the customer? And of course, then you need to understand the customer perspective by connecting with them, deliver the MVP, then you need to do some pivoting. Because sometimes what you experiment may or may not make sense in the marketplace. How do you do the pivoting? Are you going to blindfoldedly reject, or are you going to do some modification to that experiment? That's what perseverance and pivoting means at the end of the experiment. So that you take the feedback, you look for the outcomes, and then try to improve one step at a time. Once that MVP is proved, then that is a learn and adapt over a period of time until unless you realize the complete business value. So you need to spend some real time before you make sure that hypothesis is validated and is working in the marketplace. So again, you need to understand some aspects here. Typically, the customers are the ones who are going to be the beginning and end of the value streams. We create the value. And then we have these business solutions we are creating for the customers. And we need to have this operating system between the people and the various ways of working to make sure that we are leveraging these systems to provide that particular aspect of value to the customers. So this business operating system, essentially, the people at the end of the day create that value to the customers. And we need to create that operating system wherein you can customize and maximize the value through these MVPs models, what we're talking about. And if you want to really adopt our transformation cycles, if you look at it, we have organizational transformation, personal transformation, and some practices you need to do iteratively, incrementally. If you look at this organizational transformation, you must have this cultural transformation top down, and also making sure that you are defining and organizing the teams around that value with certain practices and policies and working agreements. If you don't create the cultural transformation, it will become a transaction or transition, as I discussed earlier. Now, if you want to look at some practices point of view, it could be your any framework you may use, any method you may use, does not matter. How are you planning? How are you meeting? How do you understand? How do you synchronize? How do you inspect and adopt? Of course, there are certain specific roles in this way of life. Doesn't matter, Scrum Master and POs are famous. And we need to understand some engineering practices. Without engineering maturity, I don't think any process things can make you the changes. And also you need to understand the requirements and their traceability back to the vision and everything, and story mappings are very, very important. So there are many more practices. It's just example things I mentioned here. Ultimately, it is the engineering maturity which can make the difference. If you don't have the engineering maturity, it is very unlikely that you can get success there. Then, of course, you need to go for personal transformation. How do you bring the competency in the people, that cross-functional teams and self-organization? And how do you create for a common understanding, for the common alignment? And how do you develop these people to build their culture overall? How do you make sure that they're collaborating and coordinating across the board? And how do they empathize with the upstream and downstreams is very, very important. If upstreams and downstreams are ignored, nothing will happen. It's very, very important to get there to make sure that that oneness has to come in the organization perspective. You're making the complete whole organization lean and agile. It does not matter development team, testing team, or architecture team, procurement team, finance team, human capital. Anybody and everybody has to be part of the game, and they need to do that personal transformation. Otherwise, what will happen? Your procurement team will be sleeping for next 3 months to get something procured. How it matters if you are going to do 2 weeks of potential realizable increment? It does not make sense. If you don't make your salesperson agile, what will happen? They will be selling anything as they like. They don't understand what's actually you are building. They need to be aligned with everybody, right? If you are not making your regulatory and statutory people compliance sake, you may be doing a lot of rocket science, but at the end, you cannot deploy them because you're not compliant. If compliance comes at the end of the game, it does not make sense. If security comes at the end of the game, it does not make sense, but then damage is done. So how are you going to make sure that all these people, you are thinking a little bit of shift left mentality, and bringing everybody for a common aspect of the lean and agile principles and mindset, that can change the game, the way you want to operate. Then the speed to market, quality, productivity, and happiness, everything will be byproduct because of people transformation. If you don't do that, it's very, very unlikely that you can be there. So you must address all these three aspects to achieve a sustainable organizational change. If you don't do that, again, it is a suboptimal. It does not make sense in the long run. So in general, the problem with agile transformation is the goal is never to adopt agile. As I mentioned earlier, the goal is to become more matured organizations to solve the problems of the customer in the shortest possible lead time. Sometimes people come here to save the cost. Cost saving or cost optimization is not the reason for the agile. The reason for agile is to basically to reduce the risk of the feature, to get the early feedback, and iteratively, incrementally to evolve the product. That is the whole point you are coming here. It is not to just adopt, it is not to just showcase to the people, it is not even to save the cost. Maybe saving cost or benefits could be a byproduct of the culture you wanted to create. So our idea is to deliver better solutions. That's where the business agility can help you further. And of course, at the end of the day, it is the outcomes, not the outputs we should be focusing upon. Outcome is what matters at the end of the day. So how do you get there? Again, there are a lot of interesting stuff here I wanted to bring to your notice. There is a good accelerated book by John P. Cotter talking about the dual operating system. Very good topic. And the Age of Agile by Stephen Denning. Business supports networking models. And very interesting stuff from Mick Easton on the product-based research. He was talking about project to product mentality. And there is a very powerful thing from the US Army retired person, Team of Teams. That's even powerful book. It's talking about this McChrystal's experience being in the defense and what is the power of Team of Teams in their battalions and the military operations. How do they really synergize together for the interest of the country, right? That is the oneness we need to talk about it in the Team of Teams. These are not isolated components in the organization. If they can bring that aspect of the mindset, they can change the game. So similarly, we are the people in the organization working together for a common purpose. They all need to align for that. And they need to really go beyond from project to product mentality as a team of teams to make a oneness in the game with the dual operating system kind of thing. These are very good books in a way to create some cultural things that might make a complete difference. And they will be enable the agile teams and they will be able to bring this business agility. And also, we're also talking about centralized policy makings and strategic initiatives to get there for the transformation leadership. These are the really great books I would highly recommend to make an attempt to get there to read. The agile transformation point of view now, on the how part again, obviously you need to look at the context, right? At the end of the day, context counts. And you need to look at the context by doing some assessments, then the gaps identification, then you do the baselining, then think about certain trainings if it requires as per the need of your adoption, and the coaching ongoing, the collaboration it requires, that will again comes with the coaching maturity. And then you go for some tools and techniques where it can enable the transformation. So this is a high level point of view just to talk about that. And everything starts with strategically from a leadership transformation. Then we need to talk about the skills and staffing assessment, the competency building and the gaps identification and nurturing the people. Then you need to first make the team transformation. After the leadership mindset change and the skill gaps, team transformation happens. Then you bring more tools and techniques from the agile tracking point of view. Once you have that readiness, you go and do a pilot. Pilot will reveal a lot of stuff. Then analyze them and look for the feasibility of the rest of the things. Then start inculcating the best approaches from the implementation. Then slowly penetrate to the next level at the scaling. At the end of the day, the enterprise transformation should happen. Definitely that culturally cannot happen on the day one. Anything and everything start with the leadership. If the leadership is not actually doing the things in the right way, it is not about approving something, right? There's skin in the game. Then it can become the cultural transformation as a whole. These are the step-by-step approaches probably it can think about if you are really serious about these transformations. Again, you can create your own roadmap strategies for that to implement, starting with the communication to the people. what is the need of this transformation, what is the compelling reason, who is going to own this accountability, and how the backlogs looks like, what we are attempting to do. Then once the communication is good in the enterprise, everybody understand why we are going to do what we are going to do. And then the pilot and identification of the roles, trainings, implementation and learnings to the further. So the way what I was talking about here, this can be structured in a way as a roadmap here, and you can always customize this. There is no rule here, or there is no silver bullet here. Just you need to customize what are the things we should do in a right approach, and how do you inspect and adapt over a period of time is also equally important from here. So when it comes here, you must really understand these pieces here. Once you have this clarity with this transformation approach, and then the transformation strategy can be outlined as a roadmap here. And some of the challenges in typical, if you look at it, most of the organizations, I think siloed approach does not make sense. Otherwise, it does not bring the business agility. And business agility is the way of life, as I mentioned, the why and how part so far, right? The what and whys. Now, the growth mindset and fixed is a generic problem. Product and project thinking is even pathetic. People are not even coming out of the project mentality, because you cannot sell project to customer, right? You can sell either product or services. Why don't you really think about the product lines as a value stream so that you can make this business agility more meaningful? Again, people is more important. Processes are good. You need to really think about it, how make the people the part of the game. How do you bring the humanity into the game of the value creation? And adoption is not everything. Maturity is the most important thing. How do you go about that maturity? How do you respect some of the principles compared to the practices is another important thing. You need to practice being pragmatic, being contextual. That's what context counts at the end of the day. Preaching does not make sense. Practices and pragmatism can make the complete difference. And also, some of the people mostly running behind the managing people, managing things does not make sense. How do you lead the things? How do you lead by example is what matters. And it is not about extrinsic motivations. Carrot and sticks does not work in the 21st century. It is all about intrinsic motivation to motivate people to do the right things. Velocity, nobody cares. Unfortunately, everybody running behind the velocity. Nobody cares about the value. Of course, value being a subjective, not many people even understand what is the value. And that is the biggest challenge today. Enforcing does not make sense, because no enforcing and force fitting work in the long run. You need to empower the people. I know it is a soft thing, it takes time, but at the end of the day, it is what matters. If you can be reactive, does not take you anywhere. By then damage is done. How can you proactive in this kind of digital disruptive world? So whatever I was talking about, this siloed agility, fixed mindset, project, process, these are all things kind of not expected to do, or those are the things are happening because of the way it is, but you must be focusing on. Otherwise, if you want to really get to overcome the business agility standpoint of view. Of course, for some of the potential things you can think about, how do you create a compelling vision in the organization? How do you make sure that people understand the reason for why we are doing what we are doing? Educate the leadership team first. Without that, nothing will happen. However, the great people having great knowledge does not go anywhere. And you need to look for the short-term goals against the long-term objectives, because things will take time. You cannot do everything overnight. And make sure that you are grooming the internal talent. Don't look around industry to get people, because you don't get the people anyway what you are expecting for. Don't ignore the talent inside the companies where you have a lot of people can really groom to get into the best possible state of affairs, because they know the ecosystem better. They have the abilities to get customized easily, and you do that. And don't run behind only IT department to make agile. Bring all the cross-functional teams, all the enabling functions like human capital, procurement, sales, marketing, your compliance teams. They all should be part of the game, even including finance people. You need to get rid of the annual budgeting to the quarterly budgetings or what are the agile budgeting. And you need to really create the baseline as part of transformation. If you don't have baseline, there is no nothing to showcase, nothing to get the buy-in from the leadership team. And it does not make any sense if you are more subjective in that. Figure out what objectives, what targets, what goals, and what baselines. Then maybe doing some kind of changes can bring you into notice and buy-in further. So unless you do that, you cannot measure, you cannot success, you cannot showcase. At the end of the day, you're accountable for the transformation also in a way what is making sense for an organization. Make some meaningful metrics. Don't measure everything because you can measure. Metrics should give you some data decision kind of information, which can help your organization to get to the next level of a thing. If you don't do that, it does not make any sense. I always say metrics means measure everything that results in customer satisfaction. If you are not doing those kind of things, it's merely wastage of time. And creating a culture for shared responsibility, shared quality, collective responsibility is very, very important. Because no single person, no single team, no single department can make organization success, right? It's a common alignment. It's common aim of the system. We need to collaborate. We are all interconnected components, and we cannot run faster than the slowest component in the system, right? We need to go together. If you don't go together, it does not make any sense. Engineering maturity is another important thing. People are talking about DevOps, now SRE. There are many more things are evolving. Ultimately, it is the engineering maturity which can make or break the things in this kind of speed phase, marketplace conditions. In this fast-changing digital disruptive world, if you are not up to the mark engineering standards, no process framework, no theories, nothing will preach. You will not go anywhere. Doesn't matter what product you are working upon. You need to make the maturity on the engineering, then only things can change. Whether it is a speed to market or quality or productivity, everything ties back to the engineering maturity. How best you can do, I think people are doing good already in the organization. They're best at what they're doing. Just that you need to bring the right culture, right tools and techniques to navigate them for a good reasons. Telemetry means basically you get the information from the data points from the production system, the live servers, not manipulating data points, not manipulating dashboards and status reports. It does not make sense. How do you get this telemetry based on the stakeholders' needs, who are influencing, who are authoritative, who can make the decisions? You need to generate certain reports from the production directly in the interest of those customers, especially the stakeholders. Last but not the least, you need to inspect and adapt. There is no shortcut for the success. I think anything and everything will evolve over a period of time. Don't look for a big bang things. You must always take that one step at a time, inspect and adapt. There is no shortcut for the success, and there is no alternative for that. That's what I would always say in the agile world. If you don't do this, if you inspect and forget, nobody cares. You need to adapt to the new ways of life. Now, what matters at the end of the day here? Now, growth is never by merely a change. It is the result of the force working together. Some of the interesting things what I like is what I'm talking here. Organization that adopts an agility mindset report increase of operational performance between 30 to 50%. It is the McKinsey research already talking about. And also, if you don't have this vision, strategy, goals, I talked about it, product innovation, delivery agility from the digital disruption, adaptability, leadership effectiveness, nothing will happen. Because these are the why behind everything what we are doing. Business agility means everything, culturally, leadership, and your organizational change and teams and transformation, everything has to go hand in hand. And also, if you don't bring this design thinking and lean startup mentality with the minimum viability, what I talked about it does not make sense. So solving the right problem right way, using various frameworks, finally realization from the DevOps and SRE standpoint of view. And of course, you need to sense and respond to adapt to bring the business agility. It is not a business as usual. I plant something, I go to market, nobody cares. How are you sensing strategically in the marketplace? That's what sense, respond, and adapt means to bring the business agility. So time to time, we need to look at the marketplace, what is changing. Imagine before COVID and post-COVID, what things are changing. You cannot afford to do the same thing before COVID, what you thought of, right? Everything upside down. And we don't know what will happen tomorrow. We don't know what innovation is happening, what digital disruption is happening today. You need to be prepared for that. Otherwise, it is just impossible thing you can get anything out of the game. So unless you do all of these things together, it's hardly a possibility of getting there what you are aiming as a business agility. As African proverb says, if you want to go far, you have to go together, right? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Otherwise, it is just impossible. It will become a local optimization on the global disaster, which I always say from the transformation standpoint of it. And if you look at some factors on this waterfall and agile, the transformation process changes. The first thing I'm talking about roles and requirements and other aspects here. In a waterfall, this is the way it happens. In the agile, there are different ways you can look at it. How do you map them in terms of the stuff? Roles anyway, we all understand that teams and cross-functional POs and SMs, requirements potentially will become the product backlogs and release. It depends upon the frequencies and cadence you can do that. functional things and regression testings, manual testings, and automation is still a kind of reactive model. It's not a proactive model. You need to think TDD, BDD, and ADD kind of things. I hope you know that test-driven development, behavior-driven development, and so on and so forth. Those are the technical practices which can change some difference in the marketplace. And the scope, of course, we need to keep it variable, no fixed business there. And customers should be part of the game, and it should be value-driven, not schedule-driven. Gone those days, 4-time cost of iron triangle of project management. It is all about value, risk, and what we are trying to do the things faster. And of course, we need to centralize, decentralize a lot of those things. In fact, in waterfall, centralized, agile, decentralized. That is the aim of the system. Some of the maturity perspective, if you look at it, some of these metrics is very, very important for you to understand. Business value is most important, as I talked about enough already. Time to market, escape defects in terms of the quality, time to market in terms of speed, your feature cycle times or anything beyond that. And what is the requirement volatility index, meaning how good you are able to deal with the changes in the requirement, because you're helping customers to stay ahead of the competition. If you don't get there, it's very, very difficult. And what customers are using in the marketplace, feature usability index. It's another important metric you need to measure. Unfortunately, nobody cares. Happiness index of the employees is the most important thing for me. If you can take care of employees, all rocket science will happen. If you don't care about your customers, your employees, in fact, taking care of only customers as the first thing, it does not make any sense. Of course, last but not the least, net promoter scores from the customers. You have to be careful, because until unless customers are not there, you may not be the business as well, right? So for me, employees and customers are equally important. There are two ways kind of the things in the system. You need to respect the both if you want to sustain in the marketplace. Right? These are some of the important metrics, what you could think about it in a way to the business agility. So if you look at the latest surveys, and especially the Gartner's one, by 2023, 70% of the organization will use value stream management to improve. Unfortunately, today, many people don't understand what is value and value stream, except a little bit of value stream analysis and mappings. DevOps can play a vital role. SRE can play a vital role. Site reliability engineering. These things are going to make your system available all the time to the customers. So how are you going to make sure that understand the customer point of view from beginning to the end? And how are you going to reduce the time delays in between handshakings? If you don't understand the complete ecosystem of the value stream, it's very, very difficult to make sure that you are going to speed to market. You need to understand the system, focus on the delays, reduce the handshaking time, and look at the holistic picture. If anything else you are doing, it does not make sense, because still it is a local optimization. This is very, very important. What's happening in the marketplace, you must be able to get there as well. Post-COVID, of course, we have seen enough of these things. I think thanks to COVID, I would say always, it happened across the globe, everybody to realize what is the reality, right? Those people who said that nothing happens on remote, now everything happens in the remote. How could? Everybody has to exist in the business. At the end of the day, it is the necessity what makes everybody think differently. Otherwise, business as usual, right? Now everybody camouflages the things. Now we know that how organizations are operating, how working from office is a nightmare today, what policies got changed in the recent place, how human capital is changing the policies, workforce policies, and how do they respect the private life of the people, many things. I'm just talking about few of the things. As you see here, from my experience, what I realized post-COVID, I kept something from my own experience here, what is important in terms of to exist in the current dynamics. And of course, you need to always get prepared for this kind of things. You cannot take things granted as you like. Most of the things are changing, and things are changing beyond our imagination. And you need to respect the humanity at the end of the day. And you need to really understand what it takes to get there. And you need to get prepared all kind of worst scenarios. It's not always plain vanilla kind of things, right? We are living in a complex world where things are not in our control. So how do you customize? How do you adjust? How do you adapt? It is what matters at the end of the day. So some practical advice here. So whenever you are going to do these transformations, understand the ground realities, gather the data, do some feasibility and assessment studies, then have a strategy what to be done. Then you need to obviously educate the people, implement, assess the pilots, and then start coaching them to improve over a period of time to sustain and accelerate. At the end of the day, it is the fit for purpose. We need to think about it, right? Everything starts with gathering the information and sustaining in the overall timelines to accelerate the journey. You take that one step at a time and then probably it makes sense to evolve over a period of time. Don't rush for the transformation, and it is not an overnight journey anyway. So there is a powerful book, How Leaders Can Really Bridge that Gap Between the Actions and Results, The Art of Action, one of the most powerful book from the Stephen Benge. You can definitely read this if you are in the ladder of that leadership, talking about transformations and how do you act upon more than preaching in the enterprises. And then some of the closing thoughts here. I know we are having about 12 more minutes time to wrap it up. Before I open up for any questions, some closing thoughts again from my own experience as well as some great thought leaders. We all know that, right? It is not about the strongest spices will be surviving. It is all about who are ready to adapt the change are going to lead the game. If you are not ready to change, forget about how great you are, does not make sense. And of course, as Harry says, we are always running behind the crediting business, right? Who takes the credit? Who do the work? It's amazing what you can accomplish if you don't care who gets the credit. That's the organizational thinking you need to bring it in. Of course, these are some of my personal quotes. Estimations or guesstimates do not do over engineering because there is no accurate or absolute numbers anyway. And of course, time is more valuable than money. Time works and respect it because everybody gets that only the 24 hours. How do you maximize the value in the time available is what matters. Apply system thinking, otherwise only local optimization and global disaster. Nothing will happen. You may be thinking great, but at the end, outcomes are not going to happen anyway. Okay, at the end of the day, you need to have the commitment. What is commitment means? Context counts, own it, you measure and mature with integrity and trust. If you don't get these things, nothing will happen because at the end of the day, you need to have the context. You cannot apply everything as a force fitting model, right? What is your context is what matters before you do anything else. Once that context counts, you need to own and start looking at the things. How do you measure and mature? And integrity and trust is the most important thing if you want to successfully bring the business agility. I talked about this metrics, measure everything that results in customer satisfaction. Otherwise, whatever you do, nobody cares at the end of the day. Don't measure everything because you can measure. You measure what makes sense in the interest of organization success. Do what is working for you. Do not run behind the frameworks and everything in the industry. At the end of the day, context counts and figure out what makes sense for you in your own organization success. That's all pretty much here. If any questions, I would like to take now. We have, I think, 10 minutes time to go for any questions.